If you have that goal in mind, then you might want to back up and say, okay, for the next 3 years, here's what I need to do.
Welcome to the Navigating Abundance podcast. Our goal is to encourage you to pursue your total family wealth potential through insightful conversation with experts and thought leaders in their fields. But first, some obligatory disclosures. Navigating Abundance podcasts do not represent investment, legal, or tax advice. Any opinion expressed in Navigating Abundance podcast is solely those of Christopher Tanke and his guests and are based upon information believed to be reliable but not guaranteed. Podcasts are produced for educational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered an endorsement of the guest or the views that they hold. Information shared may not be appropriate for your personal situation. Consult a qualified advisor for guidance. Investment advisory services are offered through Strategic Financial Group LLC, a registered investment advisor. Navigating Abundance is a trademark of Strategic Financial Group LLC. And now here's your host, Chris Tanke.
Welcome back to Navigating Abundance. I'm Chris Tanke. Navigating Abundance is all about advancing the pursuit of your total family wealth, which means paying attention to your ledger wealth, that's your financial capital, your logistical wealth, that's your functional capital, and your legacy wealth, that's your family capital. We believe all three areas deserve a lot of attention and a lot of thought. And as you know, we would say out of the three, if you had to choose what you're going to work on today, it should be your legacy wealth. It should be your family, your relationships, your conflict resolutions, your succession planning with them, the next gen preparation, the bringing forth of your values, and your truths that you'd like to pass along that would outlive you once you're gone. That's navigating abundance, right? And it's a big pursuit, and we've talked about that a lot. That it's difficult to do, but it is really why we are here. So if you were to go to our Navigating Abundance website, you'd come up to what we call the prolegomena section, and in that prolegomena section, we have 4 different principles that really underpin everything we're trying to say. And one of those principles is what we call the success principle. And that is this, that if you really want to be successful, you have to follow the equation. Inspiration plus information equals transformation. You need both information and inspiration if you're going to see any change in your life. So today, we're going to be really focusing on inspiration. I don't know how much information here for Navigating Abundance you'll find, but we're going to grab some information, utilize some inspiration from an unlikely source, and that is an obituary. So what I'm going to do here is read this. A good friend of mine sent this to me, and this obituary was recently published in September 27th of this year, 2025, from the St. George News in Utah. And uniquely, this fella didn't want to depend on anybody else to write his own obituary. He wrote his own. It's, I guess, an autobiographical obituary. So here we go. He writes this to be read and to be published. And on September 21st in 2025, it was published because he departed. And this is what it reads. Gary S. Jurtik here. I finally took the eternal dirt nap September 21, 2025, and after 85 years of being the life of the party, it's time for the next adventure. The legend will live on in my beautiful family. My wife Sharon and our broad-stretching family tree will have a celebration of life on October 4th, 2025. He says, follow this link for a full story and details about the party. So he certainly thought this through, didn't he? I love it. Remember to take care of each other. And until then, be kind, laugh often, and always pick up the shiny rock. So you hit the link and you go to the body of the obit, and here's what it says. I, Gary S. Jurtik, no longer of sound mind or any body, have graduated from this life. After 85 years of faithful service on earth, I decided it was time to retire to the great beyond. And by retire, I mean I finally found a place where I don't have to fix anything or remember all my passwords. Amen. Before they get me started on my Afterlight Scout badges, I figured I'd tell one more story, my life story. I was born in Murray, Utah, to Swanee and Jean Jurtik. They came home one day with something screaming in a blanket and told me I was a brother. Donna, my sister, became the biggest pain in my backside, and then the biggest piece of my heart. My sister and I were relentless with each other. All the energy we put into torturing each other as kids was then changed into game nights with our own kids and holiday bondings. She turned into be the best present that I didn't know I wanted. When I was 18, me and a buddy went to the grocery store for a cold soda. We saw 3 beautiful girls standing in the aisle, and I said, we should walk over there, throw a girl over our shoulder, and take her out for a root beer. He thought I was joking. Imagine his surprise when I walked up to the prettiest girl, threw her over my shoulder, and started walking out. It was only matched by my own surprise to see the sheriff already in the parking lot. Now my wife Sharon vouched for me, even though she only knew my friend. Little did I know I'd walk into the rest of my life that day. Sharon and I married, and I enlisted in the Army. Leaving our great little world behind, we moved to Olympia, Washington, stationed in Fort Lewis, away from everything and everyone we knew. I learned that Sharon could throw a frying pan like an Olympic shot putter, and she learned that I could still carry her over my shoulder into an ice-cold shower for us both to calm down. We laughed so hard that day, I think we both knew we were going to be okay. We tried for years for our beautiful oldest daughter, Alyssa. Then 2 boys, Jeff and Mike, quickly popped out before we even had time to finish the laundry. 5 years later, we had our second surprise daughter, Casey, and another 5 years, we had our youngest daughter, Jamie. One big plan and 4 little surprises led to a lifetime of loving the unknown and the sound of conversation and laughter from the other room, equally loving the silence at bedtime. I was always most proud of my children. Along the way, I decided to do a few other things just in case they ended up in the news. Anyway, at least I could say they got their bad behavior from their mother, because I still had all of mine. I went to the University of Utah and Utah Technical College. I finished my degree after 50 to show the world that there was no such thing as too late or unattainable. I spent a lot of time in the Boy Scouts of America, not because I was trying to collect badges, although, to be honest, I looked really good in uniform, but because helping young people grow into decent adults seemed like a solid use of my time. I tried to teach them how to build a fire, pitch a tent, maybe not burn down the forest in the process. I even earned a Silver Beaver Award, which my kids in hysterics teased me. Yet they all showed up and cheered when I won a Nobel Prize. We were a rowdy bunch. If I wasn't playing the piano, singing about gloom, despair, and agony on me, I was doing the chicken dance on my way outside to grow peas in my greenhouse. Everyone in the family became an expert at finding them on the vine. The only thing I loved as much as picking peas was picking up pennies and rocks as I walked with my head down so much I think I went bald from walking into things. 85 years, and I did all the things: husband, father, father-in-law, grandfather, great-grandfather, step-grandfather, check, check, and surprise, check. I married Sharon, the love of my life, and we stuck it out for 65 wonderful years, telling jokes, making people smile whenever I get a person to talk for a few minutes, helping my neighbors, and showing every person I met that they deserve to be loved. I managed to bring up 5 amazing children, 7 grandchildren, 6 claimed grandchildren, and 5 great-grandchildren, and 2 claimed great-grandchildren into our family. I was a devout member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I did my best to walk the walk, hold the priesthood, show my faith not just with words, but by showing up for my family, my church, anyone who needed a hand, or a ladder, or a ride, or a homemade tool that may or may not have been OSHA approved. I feel complete. So if you're reading this and shedding a tear, wipe it off and go do something kind. Help someone out. Hug your family. Eat dessert first. I'm not around to nag you anymore, but I'm still rooting for you from the best seat in the house. Mom, Dad Carson, Samson, I'm coming home. Keep the campfires burning. Gary. Isn't that great? I love that. I wish I could have met Gary. I love what he said. I feel complete. Well, here's the question, right? What do you think will be said of you in your obit? Now, Gary was very proactive. He didn't take the chance. He said, no, I'm going to write my own. Well, maybe there's a lot of wisdom in that, but If your kids were to write something about you, or your associates, your friends, your community, what would they say about you? It's no idle question. It's actually a very profound question. Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, you'll find it in our resource section. It's a classic on personal development, and we've made mention of it before. One of those habits is really apropos to what we're talking about right now. And that habit is begin with the end in mind. Begin with the end in mind. So if you want to successfully complete the Boston Marathon, but you're not in the greatest of shape, if you have that goal in mind, then you might want to back up and say, okay, for the next 3 years, here's what I need to do. Here's my dietary changes. I'm going to start by walking some more. Then I'm going to start by jogging. Then I'm going to start pacing myself this way or that way. I don't know. But if you have a goal, if you begin with the end in mind, then you can back up and take the necessary steps to make it happen. Is that not true with our own lives? Begin with the end in mind. I have a feeling that Gary did that he knew the kind of person that he wanted to be, the kind of legacy that he wanted to leave, the kind of impact that he wanted to have, and he ordered his life around accomplishing it. As he said, I feel complete. There's a lady who was buried in the Stroudsburg Cemetery in Hopewell, New Jersey. Her name is Mary Terhune. And what's interesting about the Stroudsbury Cemetery is this was an African-American cemetery, started in the early 1800s. And she had a life that was only 54 years long and could have been quite interesting, I would say, especially since the Civil War was right in the middle of her start and end date. So I'm going to read for you what is on her tombstone, and then a little commentary on it that's also etched on her tombstone. So this is what her tombstone reads. Mary Terhune, wife of Louis Fisher, born August 21st, 1824, died August 12th, 8. And then this witticism etched in stone. It says, remember me as you pass by. As you are now, so once was I. As I am now, so you must be. Prepare for death and follow me. Now, actually, she might not have even thought of that. That might just have been etched in by the person that created the tombstone. It was a very common poem in the mid-1800s on tombstones. Remember me as you pass by, as you are now, so once was I. As I am now, so you must be. Prepare for death and follow me. I think that if I was in front of her tombstone, even though I've heard that before, it would strike me all the harder. Because in the end, yeah, I'm not that far away from that. That's where we're going. I love this too. Somebody responded, not to her grave, but I've seen it on another tombstone. Somebody tacked on this note that had that poem. I think this is kind of neat. Said, well, to follow you, I'm not content until I know which way you went. I like that. I like that. So, again, another example of life is short. What are you doing? How are you using your time? What can you accomplish in your legacy before you go? What can make you feel complete? Wouldn't that be great? The end of your life to say, I look back over it all, and there's good, bad, and different. Yeah, okay, none of us are perfect, but you know what I can say honestly? I feel complete. Some of you might use a different word. Some of you might say, well, no, I feel satisfied, or I feel grateful, or I feel successful, not just in business, but in family. I'm not a Latter-day Saint guy. I'm an evangelical. And I think of Jesus' words that a lot of us evangelicals, want to hear. And that is when we stand before our Maker, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Now that's beginning with the end in mind, right? And some days I do better to attaining to that. But what makes you complete? You only have so much time left. I'm trying to inspire you. I'm trying to prod you on to maybe just pour a cup of coffee and think, what do I want to accomplish yet? What are some of the goals that I want to, especially in legacy wealth, your family, that things that we've got to solve for or prepare for. And what can I start doing now so that in, the next 12 years I have, or 20 years, or whatever it is, that we can actually see that happen, right? Begin with the end in mind. I think if you can say, as Gary did at the end of your life, looking back over it all, I feel complete, that's a man pretty rich in legacy wealth. I'm Chris Tanke for Navigating Abundance, reminding you again, your family is worth it.